Hi, everyone. Welcome to Waste 360's Nothing Wasted podcast. On every episode, we invite the most interesting people in waste, recycling, and organics to sit down with us and chat candidly about their thoughts, their work, this unique industry, and so much more. So thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Bothwell from Waste 360 with Tori Carle, Waste Reduction Supervisor at the City of Greensboro. Welcome, Tori, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
Please tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up in this wonderful industry.
Yeah, so I kind of, like apparently a lot of people, fell into the waste industry. I was in grad school. I did a bachelor's in biology and decided to stick around for a master's in environmental studies. And we were going over like all of the different kinds of jobs that we could have with the degree that I was pursuing at the time. And, we were park ranger or work at an aquarium or a zoo. And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. Or when we got down to waste, like waste and recycling, I was like, who would ever want to be in that industry? That sounds so gross. And I graduated. I did internships with the city of Wilmington, North Carolina in their stormwater department and did water education. And then I went and worked for Disney. At Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I was an environmental educator at Disney's Animal Kingdom and got to teach kids and adults of all ages about animals and nature and basically how to save the world. And it was wild for sure. It was a very magical job. And I was coming to the end of my contract with Disney and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had been a perpetual intern for about 5 or 6 years of college and post-college. And I was just really tired of applying for jobs and trying to find what I would consider a big girl job with paid vacation and benefits. So I was on this Facebook page of people that had all worked in my same position as an environmental educator at Disney. And someone posted this recycling education job in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm originally from the next town over, Winston-Salem. And I was like, work in Greensboro, like probably crash with my parents for a little while I get under my feet and find my own place to stay, like work in recycling and education. That sounds like fun. And I didn't really know a whole lot about the recycling industry beyond what an average resident would know. And so I was like, all right, cool. That sounds good. And so I applied for the job, ended up getting the job, and then it all took off from there. And I eat, sleep, and breathe recycling these days. And when I say I was an average resident recycler, I was one of those that thought like, oh, plastic bags, like, yeah, I'm going to put those in. And, they were made of plastic. And, then if this, something isn't recyclable, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if it's not, I'll just put it in there and they can take it out. And now, as somebody that's in the industry, I know like, that wishful recycling, plastic bags, like that's, a huge detriment to what we're working with right now in the industry. And, but when I'm talking to residents about it, it's actually a really big win because I'm able to say, no, it's really okay. Like we understand. I used to do that. And, it's a way for us to be able to connect when we're educating residents like boots on the ground.
Definitely. And I think that's a great point because you realize the challenges in actually executing this on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And you seem to be working on some pretty innovative programs in your current role around education. Are you having luck reducing contamination and recycling?
I think so. The hard thing about all of these education programs that me and my team have been working on for the past about 4 years since I've been here is we have not been able to execute a reliable audit since I've been here. And we're actually getting ready to do that this month. Hopefully by the end of the month or sometime in July, we will get a recycling audit finished so that we can really try to say like definitively, like, yes, these education programs have been working. Because if it's not measurable and you can't say that, we reduced contamination by X%, then why am I doing what I'm doing? I need to change something.
Absolutely. And then I read that Greensboro won't be accepting glass in their recycling stream starting this summer. So you have a lot happening this summer. Was that a tough decision?
Yeah, it was definitely a decision that we didn't come to lightly. And it was one that I was against at first. And, really, glass is something that is infinitely recyclable. It's something that's been a part of the recycling industry since, it really took off in the 70s. Even beyond that, but taking the bottles back, milkman style, that was reuse and recycling as well. So when we made that decision, it was one that we came to together between the city and Republic. Republic was asking us to take glass out of our stream because when it's mixed in with all of your other recyclables, glass doesn't play well with others. It sticks to a lot of other recyclables. So then the paper mills and the plastic reprocessors aren't happy with that. It attracts contamination. So when you have, chicken bones and food and corks and tampon applicators and everything that ends up in the glass pile, because I've literally seen it all and it's gross. That pile is literally composting and steaming because of all the contamination in it and all of the food that ends up in there. And so, while glass is a wonderful thing to recycle, it's not something that we can have in our single stream right now. And we're not the only community that's doing it. I've really looked into it, and there are lists out there that people are keeping of all the changes going on across the country. And almost every state in the country is dealing with glass as an issue, or plastics or paper as an issue in some way or the other. And they're having to either make changes to their accepted list or change the pricing for residents or for communities. And then that price and cost is then relayed to the residents. So we're really having to think about recycling as a service again, and not just as a feel good, let's do it for the environment kind of thing. Like recycling is a service, just like garbage, just like your yard waste, and just like fire and police and water and everything else. So it's important for the perception of that to kind of shift in order for the cost increases and this isn't recyclable to be a little easier to pass on to the resident, because they're not happy about it.
Right. Exactly. And it was introduced to them in a very different way. So I think changing perception is sort of our new reality, especially with what's going on in Asia and what caused a lot of this to begin with.
Yeah. And it's a difficult concept to explain too, because, as an average resident, I wasn't one that would have really looked into this. And so really to try and break down like world economics in the most simplest terms possible is something that is a challenge, but it's been fun. And while residents are angry about it, I do feel like the more that we talk about it and the more that we have the conversations with them and the more that we share the realities of our industry, the better equipped they will be to make decisions that benefit our industry and ultimately benefit them in moving forward as we continue with recycling.
True. So do you think contracts will be changing anytime soon, or have they changed to reflect the reality of recycling today, like a revenue share or lower fees?
I know that in North Carolina, there are multiple communities that have gone through some contract changes, including us. Glass has gone out of recycling in more than one community in our region. In North and South Carolina and in Georgia, I've read about glass coming out of various communities' recycling streams. But I don't think it's forever. And I do think that there is hope on the horizon for glass recycling as a whole. I think the glass reprocessors, they want that material. And so they're going to have to come to the table. The processors are going to have to come to the table, the MRFs, and the communities. And I think we all need to talk about reasonable solutions to keep glass in recycling. And we're in the meantime going to have drop-off locations for glass. We know we won't get the tonnage that we would receive if it was in single stream, because the participation won't be as high.
Sure.
But I do know, I think it was Houston, they had a change in their contract a couple of years ago that took glass out. And just recently they started a new contract, and I think there were upgrades or potentially a new MRF, and they brought glass back. And so that I have been, letting residents know that there is hope. And I do think for other community recycling coordinators, I don't think these changes will be forever, because this isn't the only market downturn that recycling has gone through. I've only been in this industry 4 years, and I came into it right as there were rumblings about green fence and potential changes and stuff in 2016. But there have been other major market downturns in the recycling industry since the 70s. And so I do think that it's cyclical, and we will come back from this, and that recycling will be more resilient than ever before.
Definitely. So what do you think people can do today to be better at recycling?
Well, I think all of us in the industry can come together. I think whether you're a nonprofit, private sector, a processor, a MRF, whatever, communities, I think we all need to be coming together to really come up with regional solutions and more unified messaging for residents, because I think recycling has gotten so confusing over the years, because we went through that period of, we need to put everything in recycling so that we'll get these contracts. And, there was this push to recycle more, but we really just need to recycle better. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, as industry leaders, I think we need to really collaborate and come together and all be at the table when we make these decisions and do what is best for the industry, but also do what is simple and what is easy for residents to digest and then participate, because we're basically doing above ground mining. That's all recycling is. Instead of digging up oil or digging up bauxite for aluminum cans, we're mining from above ground. But the challenges that we face mining above ground or, mining below ground, they might be very different, but they're equally as difficult. And so getting that resident participation is what is going to provide feedstock. And so resident participation is going to be the biggest thing for making sure that our industry is cleaner and that we get above the, national average of, I think 34, 35% recycling rate. I think if we get more and better education for residents, but also the policies to back it up, the more that we will see increased tonnages in recycling.
Definitely. Now, do you think policy is keeping up with today's consumer behavior around recycling?
A very smart professor of mine once told me that you can't have one without the other. You can't have an education program without the policy to back it up. And you can't have a successful policy executed without education to let people know about the policy. And so I think that it is critical that they go hand in hand, but I think that there's been a huge disconnect between what we're asking residents to do and then what we are putting in ordinances and contracts and things like that, for the community to have skin in the game, for the MRF to have skin in the game. And then for the resident to understand, if you're not going to do this, then we need to make a change. We either need to educate you more and tell you more about why it's important to do this, or we need to take your recycling cart away. Greensboro, in the last year, we started a tagging program. I've seen them pop up in a lot of different places. The Recycling Partnership is doing a lot of work to make sure that communities have the resources to be able to provide more direct feedback. And I think that that is critical. So we came up with policies that, if residents are not going to recycle, not going to recycle correctly, we're going to let them know what the issue is with their recycling. We're going to monitor the recycling for all residents. And if they choose not to correct their mistakes, we're going to take their recycling cart away. Because in our current market situation, the thing is, it's better for the recycling to go into the trash than for the trash to be in the recycling. Yes, I want to increase tonnage in recycling, but if my MRF is going to have to reject loads, or if there are going to be, accidental casualties where plastic bottles and metal cans are getting pulled off the line with a plastic bag or with a tarp or something like that, the resident might as well not have a recycling cart if they're not going to participate. And that's been hugely successful. We've gotten a ton of feedback from residents. We've gotten a ton of attention. We've sent out more than 10,000 postcards. And the thing that our program is a little bit different from other tagging programs is we do a combination of on the cart feedback and then direct mail feedback. So the recycling inspector has the time and the resources to put a sticker on a cart or a hang tag on a cart for some communities. But our recycling drivers don't. They are working on making sure that everything gets picked up.
Mm-hmm.
So they have tablets and can virtually tag a address if they have plastic bags or yard waste or styrofoam in them or whatever. And then we run those reports every day and create these postcards that say, this is a contamination notice. Your recycling cart was inspected on X date. The following unacceptable items were found. And so we're able to customize that postcard and then let the resident know that this is your first, your second notification. And if you continue to do this, we're going to eventually take your cart away. And it's been really successful because we've been able to reach so many people, but also the number of carts that we've actually taken away versus the number of postcards we sent out is drastically different. I mean, 10,000 notices, but only 75 carts actually taken away in a year is huge. And I think it's indicative of the success of the program. And the first notifications versus the second, third notifications it's so many more first notifications. So that direct mail feedback is kind of that trigger of like, oh, they are actually looking at this. I need to make sure that I don't put plastic bags in my recycling.
Right.
And my hope is that with this upcoming audit, we'll be able to say like, oh, we actually don't have this amount of contamination that we thought. We've got a little bit less because we've been working on this for a year. So hopefully my dreams will come true and the audit will be awesome.
Oh, I bet it will. And I think that's fantastic, the way that you've brought technology in to make your job easier and to be able to personalize at such a level that you are changing the behavior and you're getting that outcome that you're hopeful about. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And the great thing is you don't need a ton of technology for a tagging program. You can literally do pen and paper and an Excel sheet and get a tagging program started. And if you're able to pilot it and then prove that you're decreasing contamination through like visual audits and stuff like that of the pilot area, then you could potentially prove to your community like, hey, we should invest in tablets and a software program to be able to reduce contamination so that hopefully when our contract expires in X number of years, we'll be able to prove like, hey, we've done a lot of work. So-and-so company, can we have a lower rate because we've decreased our contamination so much?
Right. That's a smart way to roll that out. Now, did you initially do that or had you rolled out the technology at first and then kept improving from there?
We got the technology first, and it took a few years when I started as the educator, and we had like just gotten the technology start going until I took over, my role as the supervisor of this program. And so once I took over, I was like, this is something that we need to really focus on. Contamination is not going away, and we need something that is direct feedback. And so I started kind of developing how we would do it. We're using one program right now that it took a lot of lifting to get it to work the way that we want. But I'm really hoping that there is another program coming down the pipe soon that I've heard rumblings of that the Recycling Partnership might be a part of, and said in one of their webinars that communities will maybe be able to subscribe to and will actually be designed for this kind of program. Because what we're using right now isn't ideal. And I would hope that since more and more tagging programs are popping up, that the technology would catch up with what we actually need as recycling coordinators to be able to do this.
Right. Okay, that would be great. Hopefully improvements are coming. So I see you worked on a resident-facing mobile app. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. It is awesome. We have an app called GSO Collects. It's powered by Recollect. They're out of Canada. And it is amazing. I absolutely love this app because I'm able to put in calendars and schedule reminders. Like a resident gets a reminder every week to put out their trash or their recycling cart. And if we have a holiday or if we have inclement weather, To the resident, it just magically automatically adjusts. But for me, I'm able to literally go into a program and drag and drop it, whether I'm here at the office or I was actually literally driving in the snow one time and we were canceling service that day and we were going to postpone it until the snow was cleared. And I had my laptop and I had my work phone and I turned on the hotspot and was able to move it. And then it's got a Waste Wizard search feature. So residents can search items and we can actually see that like, oh, mattresses is something that people really are wondering about. You know, maybe we should put out a little bit of information about like what to do with your mattresses. And then we actually integrated and partnered with our communications department. And we were able to connect our communications system to Recollect's reporting feature. And residents are able to go in and report either a missed collection or a pothole or graffiti or, you know, anything that they might see that's an issue within the community. And then our contact center is able to distribute that out to the correct department and the correct person to get that issue taken care of. And so it's been a really seamless integration. We've had really high participation. And I'm with all of these changes with glass and the other things that we're taking out of recycling, we're going to have glass drop-off locations. I'm also going to be able to push out education campaigns with those weekly notices so that residents don't just get a reminder like, hey, put your trash cart out, but also like, hey, put your trash cart out, but just so you know, glass is no longer recyclable in your brown recycling cart at home. It needs to go to a drop-off location.
Wow. What a great way to communicate with your residents.
Mm-hmm. And I really think that this is something that more communities are going to be subscribing to, whether it's with Recollect or another company that does this, because it is so easy and residents really, really love it. I was sitting in the contact center. I had met with them and then I was kind of like shadowing to see what it's like. And this one lady was calling in to complain about one thing, but she was like, I just love that app. I think it should be paradigm for every community. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I was sitting there like with cold chills, like, yes, thank you. Like I see like reports and like people calling in and saying that they love the app. And I see like a monthly report. But to actually hear somebody say it when they're talking to somebody that's not a recycling person is like really just validating for someone that actually was able to bring this from just an idea to actually being used. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's huge. And then how are your adoption rates and are people really subscribing?
Yeah, we have a ton of subscribers. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think we're approaching 10%. And that's huge because, you know, for a medium-sized community like we are, to get 10% in, I think, 18 months, we've been with Recollect. I think we've done a lot to really integrate the GSO Collects app with everything that we do. Like, oh, you get a brochure, it's got GSO Collects on it. Oh, you get something in the mail, oh, it's got GSO Collects on it. Like we put it literally on everything. We do like weekly videos that we push out called Trash Talk Tuesday. We've got a weekly blog that we push out called Ever Wonder Wednesday. And on every single one of those, there is something about like, wonder what goes where? Use the Waste Wizard and the GSO Collects app. And so I think the key success is if you're having issues with something, you can push it through GSO Collects. If you're trying to get more people to remember to put their card out, like push it through GSO Collects and like let people know about it. So we've done a lot to really integrate.
Oh, I bet. And you'll just see those numbers increase, I'm sure.
Oh, I hope so.
Good for you. What are some of the biggest challenges that municipalities are facing today?
Well, as someone that is going through program changes and accepted list changes right now, I think the biggest issue for me is the perception that residents are getting, and that, the municipality doesn't want to recycle anymore, doesn't want to like let us recycle something that's crazy recyclable. Like there is a market for glass. This is lousy leadership. And it's like, yes, there is a market for glass. But glass and residential recycling And single stream recycling it's just so low value that it's not something that can feasibly continue to be recycled the way it's recycled right now. And so the perception is that we're taking steps backwards. But I'm working so hard, and my team is working so hard to take step forward and to continue to, number one, keep Greensboro recycling. Because, if we had, gone down another path and the cost had been too much, there could have come a point where a decision might have been made. And I don't think Greensboro would ever do this realistically. But for some communities, recycling has just been canceled. And that's not something that we ever want to see happen in Greensboro. Greensboro is a community that recycles. And a lot of communities are going to try and recycle at all costs. But at some point, if that cost gets so high that it's bleeding the community dry or it's bleeding the MRF dry, we can't ever come to a situation like that where we're at a crossroads of, are we going to go bankrupt or are we going to keep recycling? Because I know that we would stop recycling so that we wouldn't go bankrupt, or at least that's what any reasonable business or municipality would do.
Sure.
And so it's one of those things where, yes, this hurts right now, but these are growing pains. And even though it doesn't feel like we're growing because it feels like we're taking steps backward, we have to make recycling better. And what we've been doing hasn't been working. So we're trying something else.
I think that's great. And you're right. So what are you seeing in Greensboro around food waste?
I see a big desire to compost from residents. What is really difficult is we don't have any infrastructure close by. Our closest composting facility is, I think, 2 counties away. And, we're a mid-sized community in the Southeast, and we are not far from, the big cities of Raleigh and the really forward-thinking cities of like Durham and Chapel Hill. And, a lot of residents there have more access to food waste composting. But, right now we can offer education for how to backyard compost or how to vermicompost if you don't have a backyard. But we're not at a place right now where the municipality is looking into food waste composting, either for businesses or residents. But I'm really hoping that if you're a composter out there and you want to come check out Greensboro, like, we've got a lot of residents that want to do it.
Sure.
I don't know if I'll be able to help, but if you want to come and start a composting business in Greensboro, like, please, I'll give you my food waste. I have a little vermicompost bin in my office, and people at the office give me their like coffee grounds and banana peels and whatnot. And I've just got some happy worms, but that's about all I can do right now.
That's great. Hey, and at least the desire is there. So that's always a jumping off point, which is great.
Yeah.
So, Tori, what else should we be paying attention to in the world of waste recycling and organics?
I think as we move forward, especially in the next decade, especially with some of the folks that you've had on this podcast, I think there are some crazy cool innovations coming in robotics and technology and MRF upgrades. I think that we are primed right now. China is an unfortunate situation that happened. The green sword and the green fence, it really, really sucks right now, if I'm being completely honest. But I think the United States is primed for some really amazing domestic markets for reprocessing materials, for manufacturing recycled content items. But even if we don't get to the manufacturing process, if we just get to the processing and, turning the scrap plastic into chip and stuff like that, I think we're going to see a boom in the recycling industry. It might not be next year. It might be, 5 years from now. But I think that with this, huge glut of recycled content from MRFs that we're seeing, there's a huge opportunity for amazing entrepreneurs to come in and really think about, okay, how can we get this to a form that more people want, whether it's better contamination removal, better sorting, robots. I think that all that stuff is really cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what our industry comes up with to really pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and make a huge impact in the way that we process waste.
I think that's great. And I agree. And I think you're right that referencing the challenges from the 70s and how we've always recovered and it breeds innovation. I think that is on the horizon. And it's exciting to be here to watch.
Yeah. And we as humans are nothing if we are not innovative at fixing problems that we create.
Right. Exactly. Very good point. So what keeps you busy outside of work?
Outside of work, I am a dog and cat mom. Aww. I've got 2 dogs, and we just got a puppy that's a Great Dane lab mix. And so he is a handful, but him and his older sister I love them so much. So we love going for walks and hanging out at local breweries and meeting new people and trying new beers and stuff like that. So me and my husband have a lot of fun doing that on the weekends.
Oh, I love it. That's great. So tell us, how can listeners hear more from you?
So we are on Facebook and Twitter at GSO Goes Green. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, Tori Carle. So, and if you, my name is kind of strange. So my last name is Carle, which looks like Carl, but it's actually Carly.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like you've shared so many thoughts from a public sector perspective that we haven't had on this show before. So super valuable. And I know our listeners will love it. So thank you so much, Tori. This has been great.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, Tori.
All right.
Bye-bye.